Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be doing a Sky Striker deck profile. I've just started using it. I've had a couple of wins, couple of losses. Not 100% sure how it's going to go. So I'm doing this just before the second anniversary maintenance hits in 4 hours time. Very excited about that. It's the second anniversary, so getting a heap of new stuff. Unfortunately, we're not getting the Unchained support that I was hoping, so I'm just going to put Unchained on the back burner for a little bit until we get that support. So I'm going to move over to Sky Striker. Now this is one I've actually made myself, so I don't know how good it's going to be. If you have any suggestions what to put in, what to take out, etc, leave a comment below. But Masterduel meta, always 3 maxis, 3 Ash. You can probably put that down to 2 if you wanted something else. So this deck doesn't have many main deck monsters. We do have a lot of Sky Striker support cards that are monsters. Unfortunately, they're all terrible. So these ones, they're all terrible. So they all get summoned into your main monster zone, and the main gimmick of a Sky Striker deck is to keep monsters out of your main monster zone. That lets your spells have powerful effects. If you control no monsters in your main monster zone, no monsters in the main monster zone. So that's the only reason why we have very little monsters here, because we're summoning very little. So we don't want these are all terrible. They get summoned to your main monster zone, you don't want that. So then we've got our normal trap cards, our normal 3 imperm, normal stuff. And we've got Sky Striker Ace Ray. She's your starter. She's the main character of the show, basically. So at any point, you contribute this card, special summon 1 Sky Striker Ace monster from your extra deck to your extra monster zone. While this card is in your graveyard, if a face-up Sky Striker Link monster you control is destroyed by battle or leaves the field, you can special summon this card. So she's basically your backup as well. So she's your starter. She can attack, then tribute into one of your ace monsters. And then when she's in the graveyard, if one of these gets destroyed or whatever, she can summon herself back. If it's on a different turn, she can use this again to basically say, nope, not doing it. So we've got Sky Striker Ace Rose. We only run one of her because we want her in the graveyard more than likely than anything. So if a Sky Striker Ace monster is normal or special summoned, except for Sky Striker Ace Rose, you can special summon this card from your hand. If an opponent's monster in the extra monster zone is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of your card effect while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card, then negate the effects of one face-up monster your opponent controls. So basically we want her in the graveyard at all times. She can come back and negate something if you really need her to, but she is more than likely more helpful in the graveyard. So she's dark, she's light. Helps really with this card when we get down to it. Really helpful for actually... This deck isn't very good at overpowering monsters. It's more of a technical control deck. But when the time comes to your finishing blow, having her in the graveyard is 10 times better than having her in your hand or on the field or in the deck. We've got Surgical Striker Hamp. This card is always treated as a Sky Striker card. If you control a Sky Striker Ace monster, you can summon this card from your hand to either field by tributing 1 monster from that field. You can only special summon Surgical Striker Hamp once per turn. When this card is destroyed by battle, you can target 1 card your opponent controls, destroy it. So this is a Sky Striker based Kaiju, basically. So if you have one of your Sky Striker monsters, either one of those or one of the extra deck ones, you can tribute something on your opponent's field, summon this to the field, destroy it, and you basically get a free destroy. Or if you really need the attack power, you can summon it to your field by tributing anything, but it's not very often you want to do that because, like I said earlier, the whole gimmick of this deck is to control no monsters in the main monster zone. So we've got Reinforcement of the Army. just adds one level 4 or lower warrior monster. So if you brick and you don't get any monsters, there are warriors that'll help you get it out. Sky Striker, Mobilize, Engage. This is your main searcher. So this is, you want to have this in your hand at all times. So a lot of these extra deck cards recycle stuff from the graveyard. This is going to be your main target. So this lets you add any Sky Striker card from your deck to your hand, and then if you have 3 or more spells in your graveyard, which being a mostly spell card based deck you always have, you get a free draw. That's why it is limited to 2. Maneuver, Afterburners. Control no monsters in your main monster zone. Target one face-up monster on the field, destroy it, and then if you have 3 or more spells in your graveyard, you can destroy 1 spell or trap on the field. Again, just basic destruction. This is the exact same thing, just backwards. So you target 1 spell as trap on the field, destroy it, and then you can destroy a monster. These are very interchangeable. If you feel that you have something else that you would like to put in there, go for it. I've just got these because I couldn't really think of anything else to put in there. If you have any ideas of what I could do instead, leave a comment below. So I've got Dark Ruler No More. Now I could have more than one of these in the deck, but I don't actually own more than one. So this is a very, very good board breaker. Sky Strikers is a going second deck. Board breakers are very important. If your opponent has set up a whole field against you, whole field negates, you won't be able to summon anything, you won't be able to do any of your spell cards. Dark Ruler will just get rid of all that. And Sky Strikers are not a one-turn kill deck. It's not very often you will get the OTK with it. You can, but it's very, very rare. So Dark Ruler doesn't disaffect for the rest of the turn after this card resolves. Your opponent takes no damage. Doesn't really matter much once you've broken their board. Lightning Storm, again, could probably have more than one of this in the deck if you really wanted to, but I don't own more than one. As you can see, I'm very low on UR points. If you control no face-up cards, activate one of these effects, destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls, or destroy all spell and traps. You can only use this once per turn. Again, just board breaker. If your opponent's a very trap-heavy deck, destroy all their spells and traps. If they've got a field full of monster negates, destroy all their attack position monsters. Triple Tactics. If your opponent activates a monster effect during your main phase, so if they activate Maxi, activate Ash, activate any of their negates, you can draw 2 cards, take control of 1 monster into your end phase, or look at your opponent's hand and choose 1 card. Very generic card, goes in most decks. 90% of the time you're going to be drawing 2 cards. You can take control of 1 monster your opponent controls until the end phase, but if you do that, you've got to remember to none of your spell cards will work, because if you control no monsters in your main monster zone. So if you're going to use the take control of 1 monster your opponent controls, you're going to want to be linking it away into one of your big boss monsters. So I wouldn't recommend using that unless you have 2 or 3 monsters already on the field, or a Link 2 or something that will help you get into your Link 4s to basically end the duel. Sky Striker Mech Armory. Hercules Base. Activate this card only if you control no monsters in your main monster zone. The equipped monster cannot attack directly. It can make a second attack on monsters during each battle phase. If the equipped monster destroys a monster by its attack while you have 3 or more spells in your graveyard, draw 1 card. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard by a card effect, you can target up to 3 Sky Striker cards in your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck. So the main reason I have this in there, I know a lot of people don't run it, none of this matters, none of this matters, none of this matters. The draw 1 card is handy, but it's not very often that you actually use it. It's this. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard by a card effect, you can target up to 3 Sky Striker cards in your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck. So this card is your main recycler. So you'll be able to recycle all your Link 1 monsters that you go through all the time back into the deck, because if the duel goes for longer than 1 or 2 turns, you will start running out of these monsters. Area 0, you can target one other card you control, excavate the top 3 cards of your deck, and if you do, add one Sky Striker card from your hand. Also shuffle the rest into the deck, and if you excavated a Sky Striker card, send the targeted card to the graveyard. So this, as a field spell, is very helpful to get rid of this. So you set this on your field, use that to get rid of that. To get rid of this, lets you recycle some of your extra deck monsters back into your extra deck. And it's also got a searcher effect for top 3 cards. If you want one of your cards, you can send something to the graveyard to get it into your hand. And if this gets sent to the graveyard by our next card, you can special summon a monster from your deck. So if you still don't have any of your A's or anything like that, or if you want an extra one to go for the finishing blow, send this to the graveyard and you get to special summon something. This is the card that's going to be doing most of the sending to the graveyard. So once per turn you can target one other card you control, send that card to the graveyard. This makes your opponent not be able to activate cards or effects in response to your spell card activations for the rest of this turn. Once per turn during the end phase, you can set Sky Striker spells with different names from your graveyard up to the number of Sky Striker spell cards you activated this turn. So if you have this on the field, this is a continuous spell. You get rid of this, and all the rest of your spells your opponent cannot negate. They cannot activate anything in response. And then with these two, this one's helping you activate their going to the graveyard effect. This one will let you special summon a monster. This one will let you recycle monsters. So it's a very good little 3-card combo. And then once at the end phase, whatever Sky Striker spells you use that turn, you can put them back on your field to use during your opponent's turn. But obviously they're banished from their thing. Call by the Grave, just another generic card. I can put 2 in here, I do have 2. I wasn't sure what to take out, so I've left it at 1. As possibly to put a 2 in. Hornet Drones, just another way to get out your extra deck monsters if you haven't managed to draw anything. Basically, if you have a really dead hand and you still can't get a monster on the field, but you have this, just summons a token. You can link that away basically straight away. And with no monsters in the main monster zone. If you want to, you can use, if you have one of your link monsters in the extra monster zone, you can use this, make a pretty easy link too. Our main card of the deck is your Sky Striker Mech Widow Anchor. I've got this at 3. Control no monsters in your main monster zone, target one face-up effect monster on the field, negate that monster's effects until the end of this turn. If you have 3 or more spells in your graveyard, you can take control of that monster until the end turn. So basically it's letting you negate effect monsters on the field, so you can negate the negates. It's just the way Yu-Gi-Oh! Is nowadays. Or if you really want to, you can steal it and link it away. That way they just won't have it anymore at all. You always want one of these on the field for your opponent's turn. It's a quick play spell, so you can use it on your opponent's turn. And it's also very helpful on your turn to steal one of their monsters and be able to go into one of your Link 3s or Link 4s. I've got Sky Striker Mecha Shark Cannon. You can control if you control no monsters in your main monster zone, target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, banish that monster, or you can special summon it to your field instead, but it cannot attack. So this is basically Sky Striker version of Call by the Grave. Not quite as good because it doesn't negate their effects, but it does banish them. So if they have graveyard effects that happen only in the graveyard, you can banish it and stop that effect from activating, or just bring it straight to your field to use as link material for your monsters. Forbidden Droplet, just another generic card. Send any number of other cards from your hand or field to the graveyard. Choose that many effect monsters your opponent controls. Till the end of this turn, their attack is halved. Also, their effects are negated. In response to this card's activation, your opponent cannot activate cards or the effective cards with the same original type as the cards sent to the graveyard. So if you send a monster to the graveyard, they can't use monster effects to stop it. You send a trap card, they can't use trap effects. Send a spell card, yada yada yada. This is another good card to get rid of the cards you want to get rid of, to be able to recycle or summon. And also a good board breaker, because if you send one of each, they can't respond at all. and you can pick, if you use 3, you can pick 3 of their monsters in the field that they don't have effects anymore. And their half attack normally isn't that bad, like normally isn't that helpful, but with Sky Strikers that have low attack, it's actually very good. It helps you be able to bash over things that you normally wouldn't. Now Sky Striker Mobilize Linkage. This is one of the most recent Sky Striker spell cards and probably the most important one in the deck. So I've got it at 3. If you control no monsters in your main monster zone, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn after this card resolves, except Sky Striker Ace monsters. That is actually a very good thing to remember, because you do have some extra deck monsters, some generic extra deck monsters that you won't be able to summon if you use this. Send one other card you control to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon one Sky Striker Ace monster from your extra deck to the extra monster zone, and if you have at least one Light and Dark Sky Striker Ace monster on your field or in your graveyard, the summoned monster gains 1000 attack. So basically, you can use this to dodge stuff. So get rid of your monster, get rid of the target, summon something that's more powerful. This is why you want Rose in the graveyard, because she's the light, Ray is the dark. If you have both of them in the graveyard, anything you summon with this card automatically goes up to 1000 attack. There's a lot more to say. This is what the OTK is, and this is also not once per turn. It doesn't say anything about once per turn, it just says you cannot special summon monster from the extra deck except Sky Striker Ace. So if you have 3 of these in your hand, you can actually summon, use each of them in a row to summon basically any of these monsters down here. And if your opponent doesn't have a board, if you've broken it, that's game. So that's your OTK potential. Doesn't happen very often, but the potential is there. Evenly, I wanted to have evenly at 3 because obviously where this whole deck's gimmick is having one monster on the field at all times. You will have spell cards, but you can use this at the end of a battle phase if you only have one card, and it'll make them get rid of it. So at the end of battle phase, your opponent controls more cards than you do. You can make your opponent banish cards from their field face down and control the same number as you do. So if you have 2 cards and they have 6, you make them have 2 cards left. And then Imperm is just the average Masterduel thing. You've got to have 3 of them in your deck, same as Max C, same as Ash Blossom. And now we move on to the extra deck. So Sky Striker Ace Kagari. This card is special summoned. You can target one Sky Striker spell in your grave, add it to your hand. So this is another one of your main recyclers. So anything, any spell cards that you've used, this is a good way to get Engage back. So if you use Engage and then you draw 1 card, it's in the graveyard, you can summon her, get it back to your hand, use it again, because it's not once per turn. These, you can only special summon each one per turn, so you can't, it's not a big loop that you can do, but it will give you 2 lots of being able to use Engage, 2 lots of being able to use Linkage, 2 lots of being able to use Afterburners, whatever you want. But it is only limited to Sky Striker spell cards. She gains 100 attack for each spell in your graveyard. That's helpful, but it's not really gonna be very prevalent until the end of the duel, when you've got most of these spells in the graveyard. You're going for the finishing blow, maybe with her. You've summoned her with Linkage, so she's already got 2500. 10 spell cards, push it up to 3500. She's not one of your main finishers, but she can be. Next is Sky Striker Ace Shizuku. Monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack and defense for each spell in your graveyard. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card was special summoned this turn, you can add 1 Sky Striker spell from your deck to your hand, with a name different from cards in your graveyard. So this is the one you always want to finish your turn on. So when you're summoning this one, you finish your turn. Because once during the end phase, you can pick any one of your Sky Striker spell cards, add it to your hand. So you always want to finish your turn on Shizuku, and any monster that your opponent summons loses attack and defense. which does freak some people out. Hayate would be your main damage dealer at the start of the duel. So you can only special summon Star Striker Hayate once per turn. This card can attack directly. After damage calculation, if this card battled, you can send one Sky Striker card from your deck to your graveyard. This is going to be your main damage dealer at the start of the duel. 1500 damage might not seem like much, but it does add up 2 or 3 turns in. And after damage calculation, you send one card from your deck to your graveyard. So if you want to send any of these, or you can send Rose if Rose isn't already in there to help linkage. She's the one to do it, because then if you have summon Kagari afterwards, you can get that spell to your hand. So summon her, do some damage, throw, I don't know, Engage into the graveyard if you haven't used it already. Then on your main phase 2, you summon Kagari, get that engaged to your hand. End on Shizuku. It's a pretty common play that I haven't quite mastered yet, but it is a very common play in the deck. And then you've just got your generic and link monsters that you kind of just put into everything. Nightmare Phoenix, when it's link summoned, discard a card, destroy one spell or trap. You've got Nightmare Unicorn, same thing. This card's link summoned, discard one card, target one card on the field, destroy it. Oh, sorry, shuffle it into the deck, actually. Probably a bit better. And we've also got Zeke. So this is two monsters. So this is what you can do once you've stolen one of your opponent's monsters with one of our various things. If this card is link summoned, you can target one face-up monster on the field, banish it into your opponent's next end phase. Once per turn, you can target one other card you control. This card gains 1000 attack, and then send the targeted card to the graveyard. So this was, when it first released, was meant to be one of the finishing cards. I find it very hard to use, but proper Sky Striker players probably won't. They'll probably find it a bit easier. I'm still only a beginner on this deck, so I've only got one in here. It's not very often you go into this unless you're just trying to get rid of a monster in your main monster zone. The banish effect is good, but they do get it back. And once per turn, you can target one other card you control. This card gains 1000 attack. So this is another way to get rid of Hercules base, get rid of airspace, get rid of anything else you need to get rid of. Sky Striker Ace Azalea, 2 light and or dark monsters. You can only special summon Azalea once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you can target one card on the field, destroy it, and then if you have 3 or less spell cards in your graveyard, send this card to the graveyard. So this is one of your ending monsters. So you don't want to be summoning this at the start when you don't have 3 spells, because it'll just instantly send to the graveyard. And when it's summoned, it's got an auto-destruct effect. Once per turn at the start of the damage step. If this card battles an opponent's monster, you can banish one spell from your graveyard, destroy that opponent's monster. So before the damage step, this thing won't die. You can banish one spell from your graveyard, something you don't really need. You can banish the Call By, you can banish the Droplet, the Tactics, whatever you've used, banish it, instantly destroy that. You've got your generic Borrelsword Dragon. If you've stolen enough of your opponent's monsters and have a link 2 in yours, it's pretty easy to get out. I'm not going to bother reading that because everyone knows what Borrelsword Dragon does. Just a very generic finishing monster. And same as Access Code Talker, very generic finishing monster. That's there. Basically, if you're running out of these to use, you can try to go into one of those to finish the duel. Now, as you can see, there is plenty of Sky Striker cards. A lot of them aren't very good, like Sky Striker Ace Kana, not that great. And also we've got Vector Blast. Each player sends 2 cards on the top of their deck to the graveyard. And if you send at least 1 and you have 3 or more, you can shuffle all your opponent's monsters from the extra monster zone into the deck. That's okay. It's very situational though, so I decided not to run it. Sky Striker Maneuver Scissor Cross. Target 1 level 4 Sky Striker Ace monster in the graveyard. Add it to your hand. Or if you have more than 3, you can special summon it. The problem with that is you special summon it into your main monster zone, and then you can't use any of the rest of your spells. So I decided against that. It will be helpful to try to get into your Link 3s and Link 4 generic monsters, but I prefer to be using these to steal your opponent's monsters to do it, rather than summoning your own. Stealing your opponent's monsters always seems to be a better idea. Got Eagle Booster. I did have a couple of these in the deck, but I decided to take them out. They weren't really doing much for me. So this one is target one face-up monster on the field. That target is unaffected by card effects this turn except its own. And you have 3 or more spells in your graveyard. It cannot be destroyed by battle. It's very situational. Shark Cannon. Target one monster in your opponent's graveyard. I have got one of those. So I own 4. I don't really want to be running that many. And like I said, these other main monsters, apart from Hamp, are all terrible. They're all Star Strikers. You can equip that to monsters you control, but that's probably the only decent one. I still don't really want to run it. That just gives you a pretty meager attack boost. And these are all discarding spells, special summon. You can link them away, since they are all considered Sky Strikers, but I prefer just not to run them in general. So yeah, that's what I'm running with my Sky Striker deck. If you have anything to help me out with, because like I said, I have been very up and down with it. I haven't quite learned how to properly play it yet. I am still learning. And I wanted to get this done before the second anniversary coming out, so we'll see what happens there. But if you have any advice, make sure to comment below. Make sure to like and subscribe if you like this, so I can do some more eventually. I do have a Blackwing, an Exosister and a Sword Soul deck sitting there that I still need to make. I need the UR for it. So make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on those ones. And I'll leave a link to my Patreon in the description. If you like this, please consider signing up to that. It'll help me out a lot. And that's all I've got for you today, guys. So enjoy.